Hello, everybody. Let's get me on the full screen here. What is going on? Welcome to the Reach Films podcast. I'm your host, Geoff Fagien. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me. This is the first time I'm actually using the DJI mic system with my FX30 to do these live streams. I've been using XLR microphones for years and have kind of moved back to using these DJI mics or moved to using these DJI mics just out of convenience, just so I don't have to have, all this stuff hanging around here. But today it's going to be an interesting video. Just going to check the comments. Sounds good. Thank you, Jeannie. Sorry, Jean and Jeannie. Thank you for letting me know. And yeah, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. First, the really, really big news, the price drop on the Komodo. Now, I'm sure this isn't the first time you're hearing about it. Is this getting this? Yeah. The Red Komodo, it dropped in price around 6 months ago, $1,000. And now 6 months later, it's dropped another $2,000. So a total of 50% in less than a year, this camera has dropped. But it is a 5-year-old camera. It's a really great camera for what it is. And we'll talk about more about that in a second. The other thing I want to discuss is the M4 MacBook Air and the M4 Mac Mini. Not necessarily do a whole review breakdown. I have a video coming soon, but I've been getting a lot of questions about why should I even buy the M4 Mac Mini anymore with the MacBook Air here and it being an all-in-one system, having the M4 chip, and it's not quite that simple. So we'll get to that in a bit, but that's kind of the less pressing news other than the Red, because this whole thing with Red, it's a really big deal. So let me pull up here. So this is the Red website. As you can see, front and center, they're pushing the Komodo at the just under $3,000 price point. Now, if you're someone who bought the Komodo early on, like I did when I had the Stormtrooper, you most likely have made your money. So it's interesting to see this is a 5-year-old camera. It's taken a huge price hit, but I think a lot of us are kind of seeing the writing on the wall over the past few years with what's going on with Red. Now, look, there's a lot of speculation on what's going on. I covered a little bit of it in yesterday's video, but obviously, I've had some time to think about it. I've spoken to a lot of people, a lot of phone calls about this. And so let's get a few things out of the way. First, as Val brings up, Val thinks, wouldn't there be a new model? I don't think there's a new, not a Red model for sure. Maybe something Nikon, but I don't think we're going to see anything new from Red. I think what you saw new from Red is the Komodo-X with the Z mount and the Raptor X with the Z mount. That is what you've seen new from Red. As far as Nikon releases, maybe we'll see some kind of Nikon release with maybe R3D. I don't know. I think at some point for sure. I think there's a few things we can gather from this with the Komodo and the price getting lowered so much. First, when they lowered the price to 5,000 and they lowered the price of the KX from 10,000 to 7,000, I think a lot of people at that point were like, well, why would I invest in a Komodo when I could just get a Komodo-X for 2,000 more? When you're already spending that much for a camera, why not get the most out of it? Anyone who's looking at buying a Red camera should be looking to buy it not just as a camera itself, but as a tool for their business to make money. I would buy the tool that makes the most sense. And when the price difference is not that much, I would buy the better tool. Even though I like the Komodo better than the X, literally, just because of the form factor. I like the smaller form factor, but I am in a huge minority right there that cares about that stuff, about how small I can get my camera. So I think there haven't been a lot of sales of the Komodo when it dropped to 5,000. If you look at the used market, it took a long time to kind of acclimate to the new price of even 5,000. And at 3,000, it shows a few things. One, like I said, I don't think they sold a lot of Komodos at the 5,000 mark. Two, I think they will sell more Komodos now, even though the question would be is, are there reasons that you'd want to invest in a Komodo at this point now that the camera is almost 5 years old? It uses really old media that's way more expensive than modern media. Um, it has less frame rates. It has a really great image, but it's an over like if it's a 5-year-old camera. I mean, there are a lot of options now. It's crazy to think that an FX3, which is pretty much just as old as the Komodo, is now more than the Komodo, brand new. So put that into perspective for a second. Um, there's also another factor where the Komodo is running the RF mount. Now, granted, I'm not using a Canon RF lens. I'm using the Laowa 35 millimeter nanomorph with the RF mount on the back here. But they are now owned by Nikon. So Nikon has their own mount. It's a little bit more versatile than the RF mount. So the question would be, why would they want to keep promoting a mount of their competitor? I get it. Things change. It's not the same Red anymore. Justin Phillip did a really fantastic video 6 months ago discussing his thoughts about what was going on. He got ridiculed like crazy, and he ended up being right for the most part. When I say the most part, there may have been some things I don't remember the video bit for bit, but a lot of the stuff he predicted came true. Where I think Nikon is trying to fire sale the RF mount. Now, how are we coming to that conclusion just from the regular Komodo being lowered? I think we're just seeing the way that they're operating. I also would say let's wait and see what happens over the next 6 months to a year, because originally I was thinking about, with this price drop, picking up another Komodo down the line, but not a new one, a used one, getting a beat up one as a secondary camera to this, just for the few shoots a year that I need it, because I would be able to make it back just on the rental. But then the more I thought about it, I realized, we don't know what's going to happen with the other RF cameras that Red has, especially because the RF Super 35 Raptor, let's actually pull it up on the website here. So I believe the RF, yeah. So the regular Raptors aren't even listed anymore. It's just Raptor X and Raptor XL. So they're not listing the Raptor Super 35. They're not listing the regular Raptor. And I get it. Those are not the global shutter cameras. And now all of their cameras that they have available are global shutter. But I think there's something going on with, we're going to end up seeing, I think maybe over the next 6 months to a year, maybe it takes 2 years, where Nikon will first phase out the RF cameras. So the cool part is, if you're in the RF ecosystem and having the Z mount doesn't matter to you, if you're looking at the Komodo and you're able to, spend more, I think down the line, we're going to see better deals on Komodo-X's. I think better deals on Raptor Super 35s and the regular Raptors. If you don't need global shutter, I think we're going to see those price reductions down the line, as well as Nikon tries to phase out the RF mount. So just keep that in mind. But the $3,000 price point, for anyone who's been interested in getting into a Red camera, it's very appealing. Now, the reason you may want to jump into a brand new Komodo versus getting an old beat up one is, at this point in time, since the camera's been out for 5 years, first we have to wait for the prices to adjust in the used market, but you don't necessarily know how old the camera is going to be unless, other than the hours. You'll see how many hours are on it, but you could be using a beat up 5-year-old camera that only has a few hundred hours on it. So that's something to consider, where when you're buying the brand new camera, at least you have the warranty. And as someone who's owned multiple Red Komodos, I've used the warranty a few times, quite a few times. And it kind of scares me to pick up a Red camera without a warranty on it, just to see how much it would cost to fix things. I've sent my Red in. There was an issue. I don't know exactly what caused this, but after I downloaded one of the beta firmwares, the image on the camera and out of the SDI would be wonky, even though the recorded image was fine. And it would fix itself when I would restart the camera. But Red wanted me to send it in. They had my camera for a long time. But I think if I didn't have the warranty, that fix would have been a lot. They fixed some other things. It was the Stormtrooper model, so they changed some stuff. They changed the SDI clearly and added some stuff inside that to protect the pins. It took a while, but I'm glad I had it. And then with this camera, shortly after I got it, the power board failed. And it's not that the camera wasn't working, but I started having issues with power. So, for instance, like if you would touch and push in on these BP batteries or the V mount plate, uh, the camera will potentially lose power. Or one of the batteries, it would show up as unsupported, even though these are blue shaped, they're supported power, fully covered under the warranty. But if I didn't have the warranty, it would have been an expensive fix. So that's one of the things I would warn about buying the used cameras. Because, if you buy, let's say the Komodo is really drop in value on the used markets where you could pick one up for like $1,500. If you spend $1,500 on a Komodo, but you got to spend $1,500 to fix that Komodo, where's the value there? So just be careful about that. That's a big thing I want to warn you about. Um, but other than that, buying new, I want to see what the warranty, the cost of the extended warranty is going to be. When I bought it, I think it was like $500 if you bought it within the first 6 months, and then it was like $800 or something like that, maybe $700 if you bought it after the first 6 months of owning the camera. Interested to see if they bring the prices down on that. But if you do look into buying a Komodo and you buy one brand new, don't sleep on the extended warranty. I didn't send my camera in for a warranty within the first year. It was year 2 where I started having to do warranty stuff. Is it possible, or let me start going down the questions. I'm sorry I neglected these. I'll get back to this in a second. Pull me in here. So wouldn't that mean, oh, we covered that. I'm here because I'm a MacBook fan. I got the MacBook Air 15-inch. My dilemma was between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro unbinned because it's only $200 more. Got you. Yeah, we'll get into the Mac stuff in a little bit. But the FX3 sells. Yeah, no, I agree. The FX3 is a solid camera, and that's why it's been able to hold its price point. I do want to see a Mark II of the FX3 and the FX6 in I guess I could say that here. Part of the reason I used the Komodo was the fact that it was 6K. And it wasn't so I could punch in on the footage. There's a really important factor with having 6K, 8K. So I was the DP on this film called Axonar. It was a Star Trek fan film where I guess we could say 50% of it was shot practically and 50% was an actor on a green screen. And the whole movie was like a fake documentary about this war that happened in the Star Trek universe. And for the green screen shots, because we would have one camera on sticks, one camera on a dolly, sometimes two cameras on a dolly or slider. For the green screen stuff, we would be moving the camera the whole time and we'd have tracking markers. So having 6K adds that extra sharpness to where we can track the tracking markers and do the green screen movements a lot easier. And that's one of the big things that sold me on the Komodo when it first came out, because at the time, as far as actual 6K cameras, it was the Komodo and it was the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, which when I first got the Komodo, I was pairing the Blackmagic Pocket 6K with it a lot because I just couldn't justify buying two Komodos at the time. I bought my Stormtrooper one. I paid an extra $1,000 for that just to get it early. It was during the middle of the pandemic. There was not a lot going on, so it just gave me something to sink my teeth into while we were stuck at home. But it was like $7,000 for that camera. I mean, I can't believe we're getting them $3,000 now. But anyways, I digress. I needed a 6K camera to do those green screen comps, and we use them a lot because we're comping in entire backgrounds to these scenes, and we needed the 6K sharpness in order to do that. 4K, it's great. But if you're doing green screen comping or you're doing and shooting on the LED volume, you need the little bit higher resolution. You don't necessarily need 8K, but you need that resolution bump. And so that's what prevents me. And I think it's prevented a lot of people from using the FX3 in scenarios specifically like that. because although the FX3 is technically downscaled from 4.2K, that's not enough. It's not enough. You need 6K. Maybe you can get away with 5K, but I would really just say 6K. And that's what I want to see from the FX3, because mark my words, if they put 6K in the FX6 and the FX3, more people will be using it. Even in the creator, the one thing a lot of people leave out is they use the FX3 for a lot of the scenes. Don't get me wrong. In the LED volume, they use the FX9. It was a 6K downscaled camera, kind of like the FX30 is, but at least the FX9 was full frame. So that's why I want to see more than anything a 6K FX3, FX6 moving forward. Is it possible to mount and adapt Sony lenses on the Komodo? Not on the RF version. On the Z mount version, there's this thing called the Mega Depth adapter, and it will mount Sony lenses to Z mount cameras. That's the one that Red's talking about. Not, I guess supporting is maybe not the right word, but that's the one they're using on their cameras for testing. So if you get a Mega Depth adapter, yeah, you can use Sony lenses on the Reds. Now, from the videos I've seen, the autofocus kind of isn't there yet with using the Mega Depth adapter on the Red cameras, but that could change because, luckily we're in the world of firmware updates where your camera isn't necessarily set the way it is. I mean, even my FX30, it's got way more features now, 2.5 years later than it did when I first bought the camera, and features that I didn't buy the camera for. I'm very happy to have them now. And same with the Komodo. I mean, the big thing with the Komodo is the latest firmware update. Take it, I've actually experimented with the few RF lenses that I do have that are Canon RF. The autofocus is much better on the Komodo now than it was the past few years. Are you going to use it for tracking autofocus? Not really. Is the face tracking through the app any better? Not really. But as far as the single point continuous autofocus, when you aim the camera and it's within that box, it is much snappier with Canon RF lenses. Now, on the EF lenses I have using the Canon made adapter, I haven't seen a huge difference, but it could be because the RF lenses typically had better autofocusing motors than the EF. It's been one of the really big things about the RF lenses. The good side, they have a lot better autofocus motors. The downside is they need a lot more corrections, and that's part of the reason I just never heavily invested in Canon RF lenses, because a lot of them, and even the really expensive ones, but to a lesser degree, they needed in-camera corrections that you don't get on any of the Red cameras, especially because you're shooting in RAW. So that's something to remember, that with the Z-mount Komodos, maybe we will start getting lens corrections for these Z-mount lenses. And that may be a huge benefit, that the actual camera manufacturer that makes that mount now owns the camera. So I think there's a lot of benefits, but there's a question about the longevity of Red. Like, is Red even going to be alive in the next few years? Or is Nikon going to slowly phase out that company and just start making their own cameras using the same tech, maybe even keeping a lot of the employees there, still around, but maybe no longer under the Red name, under the Nikon name? I don't know. And I'm not saying that is going to happen, but it's something to consider, seeing the way things are going. And it would make sense to basically acquire Red for their technology and make Nikon a power player in cinema moving forward. Just my 2 cents. No need for electronics, manual focus, MK zooms. Yeah, I mean, even with the electronics, it's not just about the electronics for the mounting, putting E-mount lenses on the RF mount. It's just about the flange distance. It's just not possible with the RF mount, where it is possible with the Z mount. So there's a lot. It's unfortunate. I would have loved to be able to use my Sony lenses on the Komodo. I mean, look, I'm using an FX30 right now. The FX30 and the Osmo Pocket have now become, over the past, year and a half, my most used cameras. I use my Komodo on a yearly basis, but like 2 to 3 gigs a year. But I can afford to keep this camera around because it paid for itself years ago. Um, so just keep that in mind. I mean, I love the Sony cameras. I like the color science better on the Komodo? Absolutely. Do I even like the color science better on Canon? Yeah. But Sony just has the best options, or the most options, I should say. And that's why I keep the FX30 around. My kid as well, 2 FX30s and an Osmo Pocket 3. Yep. The Osmo Pocket, I actually got my Osmo Pocket right here. It is it's one of my favorite cameras. And when with DJI coming out with this little mic too, mini, holy smokes. I use it all the time, especially when I'm out and about. But at this point in time, although I've been a DP for many years, I kind of have transitioned into doing a lot less DP work, just because between at this point, what is my main job is I'm a publisher for a media company, and we do a lot of video work. We do a lot of podcasting. I have this channel here, and I still do DP work, but only a few times a year. So I'm using the best tools for the job and what makes the most sense for the type of work I'm doing. Um, that's why for me, spending, money on a Komodo-X doesn't really make sense right now for using it a few times a year. But having a Komodo, or someone who's in a situation like me where you could get a Komodo, maybe make that rental back on just 1 gig plus make money on it, then a Komodo makes a little bit more sense. It's just all about the price points. The color looks great on this FX30. What's the key? Sorry about that. So how I'm doing the FX30 here, I actually have a custom LUT that is uploaded to my FX30. And then the key then for live streaming is I do not live stream out of the USB-C, because you're stuck, shooting baked in colors, unfortunately. What I do is I have an HDMI cord hooked into my HDMI out. I'm using a capture card. And by doing that, it allows me to use my custom LUTs over the HDMI. So just to show you real quick, filming and log, as you can see right here. This is what it comes out of the camera. This is S-Log3 Cinema Gamut. And then I go and I have it mapped to this little button in the back of the camera. And I've got my LUT on. So really easy to use. For me, a lot of people complain about the Sony colors, and I get it. If you have a colorist, I had a colorist make this LUT for me. I'm not necessarily a colorist myself. Shout out to Craft Show, the OGs over there, Drew and Jeff. Jeff is a super talented colorist, and he had this LUT custom made for me for the Blackmagic cameras years ago. And so I've adjusted that LUT over the years, especially working with Cinematch, to use it on different cameras, because it's kind of been my look for many years. And so that's what I use on the FX30. It's essentially almost like a transform plus a LUT, and modified a little bit to look a little bit better on the FX30, because it was designed for, or actually originally the Pocket 4K. So it is tailored towards this camera, but it's not stock. It's what I've made tailored to it. So it's what's kept me in the Sony cameras. If you can color grade, or you have access to good coloring tools, you can get really great images out of cameras, even like the FX30, which is why I actually have the FX30 over the FX3. I like the sharper image, the dynamic range difference in those two cameras hasn't really been a huge deal for me, because a lot of what I do in the studio, at least, or on gigs, is lit. I think the biggest difference is like when you need that crazy dynamic range, like shooting real estate outside, maybe you don't have a lot of control over your lighting. The more dynamic range you have, you can push and pull the image. And it's got a really good codec. And obviously they both shoot RAW, but the RAW is a little bit better on the FX3 just because it is the full sensor. And the FX30 is cropped beyond belief. And that's why I don't use it too much, besides the fact that right now we can only use ProRes RAW. So yeah. On a shoot yesterday, I had 2 FX30s on the talking head, and I used the Osmo Pocket 3 in vertical mode for social media. Very simple setup and amazing results. That's pretty solid, and it makes a lot of sense. What I've been doing lately, especially when I've been trying to do quick content for the channel, is I've actually on my tripod I have a it's not an F38 quick release, but it's an Arca quick release that's the same size as an F38. So the F38 plates work. And so I have my FX30 on the F38 plate, and I actually have my Osmo Pocket as my secondary angle. There's a little 1/4 inch, which I have a magic arm that comes out. And so lately I've just been shooting 2 camera shots. The Osmo Pocket has been on the tracking mode, and it's also been my wide, where the FX30 has been, um, I guess we can call it my medium shot. It's not quite a close up, but it's been great to have 2 different angles. And then occasionally I don't like right now I'm using the DJI Mic 2 system with that little adapter that goes into the top of the FX30. And that's how I'm getting audio. But lately I've been getting audio through the mini in the pocket and just not bringing all this extra stuff with me to get audio for content creation type stuff, not for gig work. So there is that. Right? What is going on, my friend? Hope all is well. The new Zoom settings are huge for that use. Yeah, for sure. And I love the fact that since the FX30 is 6K compared to the FX3, we can get um, you can use that clear image zoom and get pretty good quality. I mean, even take a look right here. Does it work? Yeah, there we go. So that's clear image zoom right there. I don't know if you could tell the difference, but the fact that we could do that and still keep it in 4K, love that. Love that, love that, love that. How does Komodo versus 6K full frame highlights compare? My G2 Ursa was a lot worse than the full frame Pixes. So I did a video talking about comparing the Red Komodo to the Blackmagic full frame. You can take a look on my channel. I think I did it. It's like October, I want to say. And I brought it to the Axonar set. So we shot it on set. I didn't get to film as much as I wanted to because I got into a small little accident on my way up to Atlanta. I ended up driving and it like took over the whole trip. I ended up only having a little bit more than half a day on set, and I was comparing a lot. But one of the things that I even noticed with the Komodo against the original Pocket 6K, they're very close, dynamic range wise. It was one of the things where when I first bought the Komodo, I had the 6K as my secondary camera, and we were using it on set a lot. And I'm like, dang, if so there's a lot of people who could get away with just doing pocket 6Ks. And then when the 6K full frame came out, I kind of dismissed it. And then I picked it up on that crazy sale last year. And they're very close. They're very close. And it's kind of now, um, before this whole sale happened, I would have been like, go pick up a Pixis or a Blackmagic full frame, probably a Pixis if you're in production, just because it has more production friendly options on it. But the image was so close to the Komodo, um, like pretty neck and neck. But it's full frame. Now the rolling shutter as you move the camera is crazy on that camera. But if it's going to stick on a tripod or you're going to have slow pans, it is full frame. And if you needed that full frame look and you're lighting your scenes, they're pretty close. And so that's one of the reasons I'm happy to have one. I was using the Blackmagic actually as my studio camera. I used it as my studio camera from May, May of last year up until I want to say like the beginning of January this year. I used it for a while as my studio camera, and it was fantastic. The only reason I stopped using it as my studio camera was the amount of stuff I needed to get it usable. I mean, I needed to add an external monitor that I had here at the front while making all my videos, so that was just yet more bulk on my desk. Um, and there was no autofocus, which wasn't a big deal most of the time for this in studio work. But there were some videos that like I went and I was just out of focus because I happened to move my chair back just a little bit and I didn't notice. I couldn't tell on my little 5-inch screen as I was recording. And that started to become a problem as I started doing more Mac content and I started coming out with more content on a regular basis. Because for a while, I was only doing like 2 to 4 videos a month. And now I'm kind of doing like 4 to 10 videos a month, depending on the what content is, what there is going on that month. It's just not set. I just come out with the videos as stuff is released as I need to. I have no necessarily set schedule. I just come out with stuff as it's important too. But as that started happening, I started doing more content. I just needed a camera that was quicker to get going. That's why I don't use the Komodo for YouTube work. The FX30 was the camera that I already owned that I could just get up, get going, and between the autofocus and also the ability to have the wireless mic go into the camera and not take all this extra bulk, because I was using the FX30 with the XLR handle for many years because I've got a lot of XLR mics. I love them. They do sound better than this, but there's a lot more to it. So yeah, it's complicated. That's why not everyone has the same situation for cameras. It's one of the things I try to mention in a lot of my camera videos that my use case for certain cameras may not match your use case, but you may be able to learn from a few of the things that I'm doing that I discuss in my videos and maybe apply it to what you're doing. And if you can, then I'm glad to be able to help. But no one's use case is exactly the same. And so when you watch all these videos, not just from me, but from other creators, don't take what they say as gospel. Take what they say as from their experience and see if you can apply it to what you are doing. And then you can make the most informed decision. And the Osmo, driving my daily carrier route. A couple of weeks, I'm planning to do the Mobile Harbor tour and shoot the SS United States as she's being prepped to be a reef. Yeah, right when the when the SS United States was passing Fort Lauderdale, I was really tempted to go grab my drone and go try to fly and get some shots because I saw a lot of people were doing that. It's spring break down here right now in Fort Lauderdale. As you can imagine, Fort Lauderdale is like one of the hot spots of spring break in the United States. And with everything going on in Miami over the years, it just took too long. Give me one sec. Sorry about that. I didn't realize the phone was now going to go off on my Mac Mini. So yeah, I wanted to go test that out, and I wanted to go see it, but it didn't work out. It's so crazy down here that I just wouldn't have been able to get to the beach in time and get it as it was going by. But it's really cool. Great to see you on. Good to see you too, man. I like Blackmagic pockets for streaming, super clean internal XLRs, and the MKH 416 and an HDMI out to the Elgato. Super clean setup, literally just one button click. I monitor myself through OBS. Yeah, good to see you, man. So when I was live streaming off of the Blackmagic, I did not use an external monitor. I would use my computer monitor to live stream. And occasionally I would actually use my computer monitor to monitor the Blackmagic camera. I actually started using on the Blackmagic camera the USB-C out because I could still record. It still gave me my custom image because it's a cinema camera. There is no like built-in Rec 709, bad looking image. I mean, there are some built-in images that don't look as good as custom, but still they're better looking than whatever we get on the FX30. I use the USB-C out because man, Blackmagic makes the A10 switchers, which I used a lot. I still have my A10 Mini Pro. I don't use it quite as much anymore, but they're fantastic. And so I was using the USB-C out more than I was using the HDMI to the capture card. But I did originally, when I first got that camera, I was using the HDMI to capture card. I found it easier to use the USB-C into the computer. There was just one less thing I had to connect. But yeah, man, it's the Blackmagic is a solid, solid, solid camera. Eagle just landed. Where are we? We're still on we're still talking Komodo, but don't worry, I'm gonna be talking about the Max in a second, and then if you guys want to get back to Komodo talk, um, I will be happy to talk more about that in a second. Spring break is crazy here in Destin too, Fort Walton Beach. Yeah, I'm sure it's wild there. Um, Luckily, I think this is like the last major week for spring break down here, and then it's hope back to normal. It's why I haven't been doing much vlog content, just because man, I was on story time. I was at the beach I was like a week and a half ago, and I was working on some content. And as I was biking home, I went and I took a phone call. I was on A1A, which is the road that's right along the beach down here in Fort Lauderdale. And in Fort Lauderdale, there's no homes on the beach or hotels or anything directly on the beach in the main downtown area of Fort Lauderdale. Everything is across the main street from the beach. So you just walk over the main street to get there. Anyway, so I was going in and I was filming a video, and then I was on my way home and I had a phone call, and I don't know if I have them over here. Uh, Anyways, I have these glasses that are like Bluetooth glasses that I could take phone calls in from Bose. They were really cool. They don't make them anymore because I think there were a lot of problems with them. But I've had the latest one for like 2 years now. So I was taking a phone call, and these people saw me with my camera gear on my bag, and I had my Action 5 on my helmet, and I'm just taking a phone call, and I'm not paying attention, and there's like all these like college kids, I guess, because they weren't like kids, but they were spring breakers, and they were throwing some like crazy party, and I was on the phone, and these kids thought that I was like filming them, even though I wasn't even looking at them. And these kids came over, and this one kid had like what looked like a gun, and they're like, "What are you doing, filming us?" And I'm like, kind of like not paying attention. Unfortunately, I'm in my glasses, taking my phone call. It was a business call. Like I had to take it. I had to move over to the side and work on it. And I'm just kind of like, "Hey guys," yeah, not really paying attention. And then they started getting in my face. And this one chick comes over and she's like, "Why are you filming us?" And I'm like, "Hold on one second." And I like, let me call you right back. I get off and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Hey guys, I'm on a phone call. What the fuck?" Sorry, I don't mean to curse. I'm like, what's your problem? I'm not filming you guys. Like, what is going on here? You know, you're coming over me in my space. I'm trying to do a phone call here. I'm not even looking at you guys. Like, what are you doing? And they were in the news the day later. They were like doing some Airbnb thing. They like were renting some crazy expensive Airbnb and shooting some like music video. And I guess they thought that I was like trying to rat them out, but they got themselves ratted out by doing stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. But neither here nor there. It was weird, and I haven't been biking around the beach area the past like week and a half just because I'm just like, kids be crazy. There's some crazy videos you could see from Fort Lauderdale online. People just doing some crazy stuff because in Miami, they've made a lot of regulations to basically tell spring breakers they don't want them there. So a lot of them are coming to Fort Lauderdale. So very opposite from camera and computer talk, but there is that. That's crazy. Did you call the police? No, I did not call the police. Um, I have it all on camera though, because I was recording, but I even told them, I'm like, "Am I recording? Yes. I'm not recording you. I am literally recording what I see because it is for my safety when I'm on the road. It's not about getting even video. It's about, you know, if someone like almost hits me or does something crazy, I have it on video." And the second I said that is when they all went away. And I think they got the point that everything they were doing right now was being recorded. So yeah. Is the Komodo-X that drastically a step up from Komodo because of the issues of the I/O port seem to be solved by the mid 49 breakout box and the mount adapter? So look, when it comes to the Komodo-X, um, the big difference is more I/O built into the camera, more frame rates, and then in the middle, which I don't really care quite as much, and a lot of people will die on this, but a half stop more dynamic range. For some people, that's a big deal. For me, I shot with the Komodo X, and the Komodo on Axonar. I've looked at the footage. When you're properly lighting it, you can't really tell the difference. It's minor stuff, but I think the big deal is the frame rates and the IO. They're all in the camera. You don't have to go buy extras. It obviously works with that new Red monitor too, which is crazy expensive, but it's really nice. So there are a lot of benefits to where if you're using this camera as an A camera, it makes more sense to use a Komodo-X as an A camera than it does to use a Komodo as an A camera. Can you do it? Absolutely. I've been doing it for years, but you have to build it. You have to do a lot of stuff to it to make it a more usable A camera. So I guess take that for what it is. But yeah, you could buy the V mount plates. I have the Core and I have the Tilta one. I stopped using the Tilta one because it's the one that was rumored to have a lot of issues. So I bought the Core one again, which I used the Core one for a few years. I will say, just like the original one I had that I was not very happy about, the one that I just bought has been scratching up the back of my Komodo, just like it destroyed the back of my Stormtrooper one, which it is what it is, but I just don't like that. I don't like when you buy an accessory that's officially not authorized, but it's got the kind of the red stamp of approval. It's a red approved accessory, and it's just like destroying the back of my camera every time I put it on. But it is really tight. It's not going to be removed. It's not going to lose power from shaking it. I used it on one shoot so far. It works really well. It just destroys the backs of the Komodos. For me, the Komodo-X is low light frame rates, but is it 2 times? I don't think it's 2 times the frame rate. Let's see. Let's pull it up right here. Komodo-X. I know it does 6K 60, but it may do more. It may do 6K 80. Yeah, it does. 6K 80 and 4K at 120. So the frame rates are considerably higher. It's basically like twice in every mode. It's twice the amount of frame rates because at Komodo regular, it's 40 frames. It's at 6K and it's 60 frames at 4K and it's 120 at 1080. And I actually used the 1080 with the speed booster. It was cool. A little soft, but it was cool. But yeah, low light. I mean, for that, I'm just like, if I was gonna do low light, I'd shoot with an FX3. I don't know how much better, really, in the end. Is the Komodo X probably better in low light than the Komodo? Yeah. The measurability of how much better, I think you're better off comparing an FX3 or one of those cameras that are considerably better in low light, less resolution. But that's just me. Komodo X is still a solid camera. And as I said earlier, if you weren't here, I'm at the point where I may just wait for the Komodo X to get its price drop and get one of those instead of getting a secondary Komodo. So yeah, so we're although I started the stream a little bit early, let's say we're like 40 minutes or so in, I want to discuss the Mac Mini because I know some of you are here for that and the M4 MacBook Air. Because I've been getting a lot of questions about why would I buy the M4 Mac Mini over the M4 MacBook Air when the Air, you have everything in one package. You've got the screen, you've got the keyboard. It's way more portable. It's got the M4 chip, and it's not quite that simple. Also, I wanted to show you all real quick, having to do with that. If any of you all are fans of Severance, the show, obviously it is based show, but they came out with this behind the scenes video, and I wanted to show you the last frame. The video right here, is it showing? Here, let me pull it up. There we go. So they came out with this video. It's called behind the scenes, behind the Mac editing of Severance. And throughout the video, they're talking about using a Mac Mini. And now clearly it's an Apple show. They had access to the Mac Minis before they came out. But they're clearly showing the body style of the M4 Mac Mini throughout. Let's see if I can pull it up. I think I just saw it and it just disappeared. But they're using the body of the M4 Mac Mini throughout the entire thing because that's it. That is the only Mac Mini. Here we go. they show this body a lot throughout the video, and they're discussing the Mac Mini a lot throughout the video. And apparently, they did the editing of Severance on the M4 Mac Mini, and as you just saw, the iMac and the MacBook Pro. Now, let's clarify something. The editing. I'm not saying they did VFX work on the M4 Mini or any of these M4 regular M4 computers, but they did the editing. And it's something I've been saying for a while with my M4 Mini is that depending on the level of editing you're doing, it's crazy that you could pick up a $600 computer and edit what we're editing on that and be good to go. So if you haven't seen this video, I actually don't think I put a link to it in the description, but I'll put a link to it after I end this live stream, because it is a great video to watch if you're interested in the technology, because they talk about all the ways, really they only discuss the Mini in this video, even though at the end they do acknowledge, because you can see it in the video, that they are using an iMac in certain situations. A lot of the situations I saw them using the iMac, it was an iMac next to a studio display that was running a Mac Mini. And it seems that they were using the Mac Mini to edit and do remote editing sessions with directors, producers. Ben Stiller's there a lot and a lot throughout this video. It's a really nice eye opener into how they're doing this. So how does this tie into the whole M4 Mac Mini versus the M4 MacBook Air? Well, I have a whole video dedicated to this coming out next week about what are the key differences between the computers, because it's not so simple. The M4 MacBook Air I've got sitting right over there on my desk. It's really solid computer, and it is the best value MacBook that there is right now, especially for the power you get to it. And after I did the thermal mod and kind of didn't stop the thermal throttling, but definitely lessened it by a lot, it became a more useful computer when it comes to video editing. However, the M4 Mac Mini is still by far the best value Mac, period. It's the best value Mac because you get the full CPU, full GPU cores. You have the internal cooling, which makes a big deal. It's a huge deal to have the fan. It works. It works, and it doesn't thermal throttle, none of that kind of stuff. But it also has a lot more ports. And if you're trying to, max out these computers on the cheap, you're going to get more out of a Mac Mini than you are out of a MacBook Air. The biggest downside is just that the Mac Mini is not portable. It does not have a battery. But that's something that I want you to consider because I have friends who are in the business, and the film industry, it's really struggling right now. Anyone who works in actual production, I mean, most people are getting a few jobs a year right now on just a show or two, and that's it. So money is tight, and that's where these computers have come out in a really great time, because a lot of friends of mine, they're on super old Macs, and what they're having to do now, since the industry is so messed up right now, a lot of them are freelancing again. And so they need a machine because they're on old Intel-based Macs. A lot of them mostly are on Intel-based Macs. Some of them are on like the early M1 stuff, but it's starting to not do what they needed to do, especially if they went for the super base models with 8 gigs of RAM, blah, 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 blah. The fact that we can do what we can do with an M4 Mini at the price that it does, even the M4 Air at the price, it's pretty insane. So I think you have to be realistic to what you need out of a computer. And just because the M4 Air is more portable doesn't make it a better computer for you if you're sitting home and you're on a desktop 99 or 100% of the time. And really, it's not even about saving money. You could have just gotten more out of your computer with an M4 Mini. So I have a whole video coming out where I've benchmarked everything. The CPU, the GPU, I've done thermal throttling tests, and I am comparing the M4 Mini to the M4 MacBook Air with that thermal pad mod done to the MacBook Air. So it's not a stock comparison, but at the same time, I'll tell you, the M4 Mini still wins. So you just have to be realistic about what your use case is. And I think that will help you make a more informed decision. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today before I come out with this video, because it's still going to take me a few more days to put it out. It's probably not going to be out until the end of next week. But I just get so many questions about which one should I get, or like, oh, the M4 Mini, I'm not even going to think about that. It's just a desktop. And it's like, yeah, but it's a really powerful desktop for the money. And a bunch of people, it went on sale last weekend for $500. A bunch of people jumped on it. It was the Black Friday sale all over again for like 2 days. I don't need another one, so it made no sense. But like, it was a really good sale. I get why a lot of people jumped on it. It's to have just an extra computer lying around for that cheap that can do what it can do. Even with the low amount of memory, the 256 gigs, you just hook up an external drive and you're fine. It's especially with that computer, you get an OWC Express drive, and it's faster than the internal read and write speeds of a base model Mac Mini or M4 MacBook Air. So there's that. Howdy, Tony. Welcome to the stream, bro. Stogie's in the house. The new M4 is absolutely worth every penny. Yeah, no, the M4, solid system, solid system. We're now at a time in history where, I look back, because I'm about to get rid of my my 5K iMac. I've had my 5K iMac. I bought it in 2020 because it was touted as the last Intel computer that was going to be made. And it came out, it was released at the same time as the M1 was announced, with the M1 Mini and Air and the Pro. They released this, the 2020 5K iMac, and it had some really cool stuff. Like, it had the encoders for H.265 footage. That was my main editing computer up until I got the M4 Mini, which I had no plans on the M4 Mini replacing my 5K iMac. But after I did the tests, the CPU blew away the Intel-based 5K iMac. The GPU didn't blow it away, but it was just about equal to my 5K iMac, which had a really nice and beefy GPU. I had that iMac not just to edit off of. I used it for boot camp and video gamed on that thing, literally up until last week. And when I realized that it's just time to get rid of that thing, I have a 3-monitor setup over here with my Mac Mini, my M4 Mini, which is crazy that I can do a 3-monitor setup for how cheap of a machine it is. Then the next thing I ended up doing was I ended up getting this thing, which kind of looks like a Nintendo Switch. Let's pop this puppy on. This is an Asus ROG Ally X, and it is a full-on Windows machine in the form of like a Nintendo Switch. I've hooked it up to my actual same setup over there, and I've literally just plugged in to the USB 4. I plug it into my my Thunderbolt 4 hub from OWC, and it gives me up to 2 monitors. But the GPU is on par with, again, the Mac Mini and my 2020 iMac, which is fine for the games I play. The CPU blows away my 2020 iMac. And then, of course, the Apple computers with Apple Silicon are considerably better than the CPU on this. But I mean, I got this open box for $700, and it video games better than my iMac does. I get it. A lot of you are gonna be like, "Yeah, no kidding." But for me, I video game like a few times a week. I video game a lot when I'm on the go, and I was using a Switch for years when I'm on gigs. Whether it's in like a hotel room or I'm flying, I would just use the Switch while traveling. And now I have the power of a PC, and I've played a bunch of games: PUBG, Fortnite, Jedi Fallen Order, Battlefield, everything. And although I'm not playing at the max settings for this, even when plugged into screens, it's been great. And so that finally got me to get rid of my iMac. And the problem with that thing is it is so big. It is it's going to be hard to sell. So yeah, it's interesting. Price point attainable by all. Yeah, that's for sure. For editing Red Komodo footage, which is the better workhorse, the Mac Mini M4 or the MacBook Pro M3 Max? Or should I just start a GoFundMe for a Mac Pro before my timeline turns into a sideshow? So it's a good question. So as far as in this, pay attention. You, as far as just straight up editing footage, it's going to be the same experience on the M4 Mini and the MacBook Pro, even with the Max chip. As far as editing, the second you start using effects or you start using denoising, and even when it comes to exporting the actual file, that's where you're going to see a bigger difference on the MacBook Pro with the Max chip, excuse me, versus the M4 Mini. The better GPU you have, the better it's going to handle effects, noise reduction, exporting, any of that stuff. And so if how long it takes to export is a big deal for you, um, go for the Max. If you use a lot of effects, a lot of noise reduction, a lot of, or you do a lot of like 3D intensive stuff, go for the Max. For me, right now, I am editing footage, color grading footage, and that's really it. I've used noise reduction occasionally. I don't use it that much. I don't use a lot of effects because most of what I'm editing at this point in my career, if I'm editing something, it's either a YouTube video or a podcast. If I'm working on a much bigger job, we're hiring an editor for that, and they can put their money towards a higher end computer, whatever that is. But I am not editing like a high end commercial or a feature film, any of that kind of stuff. If you're doing that, you have the budget to go for a higher end machine. But if you're just doing more basic editing, even with footage from a RED camera, a 6K RED camera, the only thing I'd say I don't have experience with is I don't have experience editing 8K RED footage on the minis. I just don't. I don't have an 8K RED camera. And there, although there are 8K cameras from like Canon, those those raw 8K files are going to be terrible on any computer, no matter what. And just, I guess the more advanced computer you get, the less terrible it's going to be, but it's still going to be pretty hard to edit. Um, but as far as 6K footage, even the M1 Air handled 6K footage from my Komodo really well, and the M4 Mini is so far above the M1 Air at this point as far as CPU and GPU power, and it has 16 gigs of RAM. So it really just depends on what you're doing. But the Mac Pro, I'll tell you, I think that's a very niche thing. And by the way, if you were on Instagram, apparently once you hit the hour mark on Instagram, it ends the stream. It just gave me a warning. So sorry about that. Being able to use as a DIT device or in the Clutch PC is an awesome little device too. Yeah. The other function I had for this thing, it wasn't just for video gaming. And I'll talk about this in my MacBook Air video too, because I ended up picking this up after I got the MacBook Air. Part of the reason I got the MacBook Air was to have a very fast DIT device on the go because of how small it is, and the fact that it has Thunderbolt 4. But this device has Thunderbolt 4 too, and it is a Windows-based PC. And because of the way I formatted my external drives now, it does work with my Thunderbolt, with my OWC Express, because it's not on a Mac-only format anymore. And it gets really fast speeds. So when I'm on trips, especially film gigs, I'm typically not using my laptop other than as a DIT machine, or maybe like watching some videos at night. I'm typically not using it that much. And so, although I haven't come to any solid conclusions by any means yet, my next experiment is going to be, how well does this thing work as a DIT machine? Because the touchscreen works really well. I've been on Apple computers since 2009 when I got into professional video, but now in 20, I want to say 16, maybe 2015, I bought a touchscreen Windows computer to use with my Apple, so I could actually video game on it at the time. But also, it was like a tablet, one of those ones where you could flip the screen back, use it as a tablet. And the touchscreen worked really great. And that's still a thing. The touchscreen on these touchscreen devices works really great. So I want to see how well this would work as a DIT machine, because on certain gigs where I'm trying to pack as small and as light as possible, bringing this may make more sense instead of bringing a Mac, especially if I'm just using it as a DIT machine. but I don't know yet. So I don't want to make any definitive statements that it will work better, but I'm in the process of trying it. I have something coming up in the next few weeks. I'm going to bring this and do it. My only guess is it may be easier if I just bring a Bluetooth mouse to transfer the files. We'll see. Like I said, no definitive statement on that yet, but that's my thought. I'm not just going to use it as a video game device. I may use it to watch some videos at night, and the IT device. The battery power works really great on it, especially when you're not using it for video gaming. So it is a very solid, very, very solid device. And I'll do a video on that in the future too. I'll trade you 2 umbrellas. Oh, here we go. Trade you 2 pair of umbrellas, 2 umbrellas, a pair of rain boots for your iMac. Honestly, that's probably what it's worth now. It is really scary what how low the I think. So I bought the 2020 iMac. My version I bought for $2,400, and then I also got that because it was the last Mac that you could upgrade the RAM. So it came with like no RAM. It came with like 8 gigs of RAM. Not gonna happen. I instantly upgraded. I bought 2 64 gig chips, and then I didn't even realize that it came with 4 slots. So I'm running 72 gigs of RAM in that iMac. So the whole cost, I think it brought it up to like $2,600, something like that. Now I think I'm going to be lucky if I get like $600-700 for it. And I mean, the shipping on that thing is going to be huge. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to figure out what to do. Well, guys, we have now hit the official hour mark of the stream. So unless you have any questions, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I think, I gave you a sneak preview on the M4, the minis, versus the Air. There's going to be a lot more in that video. I just wanted to discuss it today. And then if you're watching this video on the rewatch and you have any questions or some things that maybe I can answer in that video, make sure to put them in the comment section of this video. If you have any good ones, I will feature them, feature your actual comment in that video. That's why I'm taking my time on it, because in my opinion, the M4 Mac Mini versus the M4 MacBook Air is a more important video than even reviewing the M4 MacBook Air, just because of how much value each of the computers bring in their own respective right. So yeah, thank you all for stopping by. Great to see you too, right? I'm gonna wrap up here. Get some lunch. Get back to getting through some emails. I want to thank you all for joining me. Stogie's popping in a little bit late, saying, I used that computer a lot, so I'm not upset about it. I got my money's worth out of it. But anywho, without belaboring the point, I do appreciate all of you for coming today. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification bell if you happen to come on this live stream and aren't subscribed, and you can keep up to date on when I do another one of these live streams or when any of the videos come out. So again, appreciate you all for stopping by. I will catch you all in the next one. Adios, guys.